In a small, oil-stained auto garage on the edge of a quiet American town, a man named Eli Turner wiped the grease off his hands and stared at the cracked ceiling. To the townsfolk, Eli was just another mechanic, a man in tattered overalls, quiet, humble, the kind who fixed cars no one else would touch. But beneath that calm, weary expression lay a secret. For 3 years, he'd been living under a false name. Eli wasn't just a mechanic. He was Special Agent Elias Turner, an undercover FBI agent investigating a network of corrupt officers. That morning, as sunlight cut through the grimy windows, 2 local police cruisers pulled up. Out stepped Sergeant Blake, tall, proud, with that kind of arrogance that came from never being challenged, and his partner, Officer Denny, younger, meaner, always looking to impress. They walked in like they owned the place. "Well, look what we got here," Blake sneered. "The town's grease monkey. You fixing cars or hiding bodies in here, Turner?" Eli didn't flinch. He'd been warned that these 2 were dirty, taking bribes, framing citizens, and shaking down small business owners for protection. He simply replied, softly, "You boys need something fixed?" "Yeah, maybe your face when we're done here," Denny mocked. They laughed, knocking a wrench off the table. The clatter echoed through the empty shop. Eli just stood there, calm, almost too calm. Inside, he was recording every word through a wire beneath his shirt. Blake walked closer, his voice dropping to a threat. "We told you last month. You pay or your little garage goes up in flames. You got that?" Eli took a breath. "I don't deal in dirty business, Sergeant." Blake's jaw tightened. He shoved Eli back against the wall, oil-stained hands gripping his collar. "You don't tell me what's dirty. I own this town." At that moment, the power dynamic couldn't have been clearer. 2 cops, armed, confident, untouchable, and 1 quiet mechanic covered in grease and fear, or so they thought. Eli looked him dead in the eye and said, "You sure about that? You threatening a cop, boy?" Denny snapped. "No," Eli replied. "Just asking if you're sure who owns what." Before they could respond, a sudden voice crackled through Blake's radio. "All units, and be advised, FBI surveillance request confirmed. Maintain distance from suspect." Blake froze. He turned his radio down quickly, but Eli had already noticed. His heart raced. They were about to blow their own cover. "You don't say a word about that. You hear me?" Blake growled. Eli's lips curled into a faint smile. Too late. He reached into his pocket, slow, deliberate, and placed something on the table, a black leather badge wallet. The gold letters gleamed beneath the flickering fluorescent light. Federal Bureau of Investigation. The room froze. The mocking laughter vanished. Blake's face went pale. "You're under investigation, Sergeant," Eli said calmly. "You and your partner, racketeering, extortion, tampering with evidence. You gotta be kidding me," Denny stammered. "I warned you," Eli said. "I fixed things. Just not the kind you expected." Within seconds, black SUVs surrounded the garage. Men in suits rushed in, badges raised, guns drawn. The local cops, once towering over the mechanic, were suddenly the ones being pinned to the ground. Eli stood there watching. The same hands that once wiped grease now held justice. For years, he'd been underestimated, laughed at, dismissed as a nobody. But that disguise had saved him. It had saved lives. As the agents cuffed the corrupt officers, one of them whispered, "We've been trying to get them for years. You did good work, Turner." Eli nodded, though his eyes stayed distant. "It's never good work when it ends in handcuffs," he said softly. He turned to look at Blake, who glared from the back of the patrol car, eyes filled with hate. "You think you've won? You don't know who you're messing with," Blake spat. "You're right," Eli said, "but now, everyone will." That night, as rain poured outside the station, Eli sat alone, staring at the files spread across his desk. Blake and Denny were just the beginning. The corruption ran deeper, higher. There were names he wasn't supposed to see, numbers that didn't add up. He opened one sealed folder, confidential. Internal Affairs, Code 73B. Inside was a photo. A man in a suit smiling, shaking hands with the chief of police. But it wasn't the chief that caught Eli's attention. It was the man beside him, his old FBI handler. His pulse quickened. The realization hit him like a blow. The same man who sent him undercover was in those files. He flipped through the pages, offshore accounts, missing evidence and signatures that matched perfectly. The handler wasn't just complicit. He was orchestrating it all. The corrupt cops, the threats, the money, and it all traced back to him, and suddenly Eli understood. He wasn't the hunter. He was the bait. They mocked him because they thought he was small, powerless, but the truth is, real power doesn't need to shout. It waits, it watches, and it strikes when the time is right. Eli Turner had served justice today, but somewhere in the shadows, justice had already been twisted. And as thunder rolled outside his window, his phone buzzed with a message. "You weren't supposed to find that file. We need to talk." Eli's eyes narrowed. He stood, grabbed his badge, and holstered his sidearm. Looks like the real case just began. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Sometimes the meekest man in the room carries the loudest justice. Life lesson: power doesn't always wear a uniform, and injustice doesn't always come from the system. Sometimes it comes from the man everyone overlooked.